Hey guys, and welcome to another video. I didn't expect to be recording this right now. I'm pretty blindsided. I've just made, actually, funnily enough, a Guild Wars 1 video this morning, which now looks kind of tone deaf, because it appears there's been some big news on the Guild Wars front. And I do just mean Guild Wars, not Guild Wars 1, not Guild Wars 2, but a Guild Wars 3 name drop or semi-confirmation or announcement. So it's very early hours right now. Not sure exactly what to think, but obviously this would be a very, very big moment and a very big piece of news for the game as we move forwards with a hell of a lot to unpack and talk about. Probably multiple videos worth of things to go over here. But I want to give you guys the story at the start, give us a bit of an opportunity to drop some comments and think about it, and sit tight and see how things are going. So basically, it would seem there has just been an NCSoft shareholders meeting. Obviously, Guild Wars 2 is made by ArenaNet, who are owned by NCSoft West. And while major shareholders in NCSoft are, you know, wanting to know about returns and what the various projects and studios are doing, usually with this sort of thing, you'd expect them to be cagey about upcoming projects so that they can be announced and marketed in the right way. But here it would seem they were just very candid out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know. It feels like it was probably something of a mistake about what ArenaNet's working on. So here, the website that's reporting on this, as far as I can make out, because as is often the case with these things, there's a bunch of websites and people reporting off of each other rather than the actual original source, and they're all adding their own extra little bits of flavor and commentary. This, I think, is the actual original source. minven.co.kr. So this is a Korean webzine, and what they've done is they've posted the Q&A at the shareholders meeting. It almost reads a little bit like a transcript, and what you can see here as well is that this is all in Korean, so I'm using Google Translate to swap, and obviously the English is going to be a little bit broken, but I do want to read this exact website if I'm going to do any kind of coverage on this, because, you know, I think it's important we have the full original context of what's going on. So it starts with this incredibly classy message at the quick Q&A. NCSoft West, says this shareholder, has been running a deficit for 8 years, and I don't understand why the person in charge remains the same. Basically asking for the person in charge to be fired or a shake-up of leadership or whatever. So acting chairman Park Byung-moo says NCSoft's West deficit issue is not something that should be looked at solely based on numbers. Personally, as I've been moving NCSoft for 17 years, I've seen NCSoft West also undergo various reorganization efforts. Originally, NC had 6 studios in the United States, and the work was done to organize the 6 and integrate them into one ArenaNet. This is already news to me, by the way. I didn't realize they'd integrated 5 other studios. Although additional costs were incurred in the process, it ultimately resulted in a competitive ArenaNet. Rather than looking at the deficit as a number, NC contributed to strengthening competitiveness in the United States. I mean, this feels like such corporate PRE BS speak already, and I've got the extra layer of it coming through Google Translate here now. I really hate feeling so on the outside, you know, like, wow, did you guys know about these other people being absorbed into ArenaNet already before now? I certainly hadn't. ArenaNet has here's the big moment. They say ArenaNet has a meaningful IP called Guild Wars, which I suppose most Koreans haven't heard of. You know, Guild Wars 1 did have its Korean launch, and literally in a video I made today about Guild Wars 1, I was talking about like those Korean promotional items, like the Coke items in the original game. There was a bit of a Korean thing back then, but not much anymore. So yeah, they have an IP, by the way. It's called Guild Wars, and after Guild Wars 2, they are currently working on Guild Wars 3. Looking at this process, we have considerable competitiveness. Though it's not completely profitable, I believe it has increased its competitiveness. I suppose we're using this word here to mean like edge or value in the market, I suppose. So there you go. There's the name drop of Guild Wars 3, and I'm not really sure what to make of it entirely, because this could be, you know, I'm getting this information through Google Translate, through a third party, from a guy that probably heard it from another guy. It could have been anything. But hey, they say there is saying that it's a family business, but the necessary people are in the right place. I think they all played their roles to a larger extent in accordance with the situation. As this is the first year of our global leap forward, we have reorganized the organization mainly at the headquarters so far, but we'll reorganize the global organization in the future. The reorganization will be carried out at careful deliberation in accordance with normal circumstances and procedures. Please watch. Wow, this is not the kind of article you want people to hear about your sequel to an MMO in. And it goes on for like a bunch of other questions, which I've skimmed through and looked for any other hits on Guild Wars or ArenaNet, and that's about it. So there's a lot of conversation going on online about, oh, is it already in development? Is it just starting development? But as far as I can see, that's just people getting led astray by the way that other articles have sort of phrased this stuff or have pulled job postings. Obviously, we know that ArenaNet's been working on something on Unreal Engine for a while. Would it have been so farcical to have thought that that Unreal Engine thing was Guild Wars associated? I think I'm actually more curious about ArenaNet now. Like, how do they respond to this article getting out and all the conversation that's happening? They kind of have a decision. Are they going to make a statement? Are they going to try and get ahead of this and control the narrative and talk to people candidly? Or are they just going to ignore it and let it breeze over? Now, if this is 100% real and big and, you know, Guild Wars 3 was the ultimate MMO project and they're all chips in this one basket, all eggs in this one basket, then in that scenario, frankly, this is a bit of a disaster for them. It's not the way you'd want this to be announced at all, and I wouldn't be surprised in that scenario if they just keep it quiet so this remains like as a rumor thing and blows over in the incoming years until they actually get the thing ready, which may be very far away from now. Like, so much money and time and care has to go into an MMO. The announcement has to be bang on, and we can look at how ArenaNet's handled that before with the transition from Guild Wars 1 to 2. They had the whole big multi-year long game plan with an expansion, Eye of the North, for the original game, bridging the gap and stuff. And there was, you know, that double was even 4-page spread out in PC Gamer. There was a bunch of stuff. This would just be the worst thing. So, hey, this article has obviously sprung a lot of conversation up for people shocked and awed by the mere prospect ArenaNet could ever consider moving away from Guild Wars 2. But what about all the time and money I spent on your existing game, ArenaNet? Which is somewhat funny to me. I think if you're following Guild Wars 2 closely at any level the past couple of years, it's pretty clear that a huge amount of ArenaNet's talent is working on this Unreal Engine thing. It's pretty clear they've got something cooking. We have evidence over multiple years that they've been interested in other projects. We had the layoffs at the end of Season 4, all that stuff about June and the video I did on that. We know that ultimately they're looking to make something else. And the reality is, if you're panicking about, oh my god, they might do less for Guild Wars later, the reality is you've already been living through them doing less. That's what the mini X-Packs are. That's what the Icebrood Saga attempt at reformatting was. Even back to around Season 4, they've already been split, and you've been playing this game, presumably, if you're hysterical about this now, satisfied enough. I know a lot of other people aren't satisfied with the quality of SU2, but, you know, we'll try not to sidetrack ourselves too much. So for years and years and years, we've been coming to terms with the fact that they've been making other stuff, and we've known about this Unreal project. Is it really such a bombshell if that turns out to be Guild Wars IP? You know, is this really new? Is this some massive paradigm shift from where I'm sitting? It doesn't really feel like it is. Until we have more details, what is there to say, frankly? Yes, there is this big conversation about whether Guild Wars 3 is a good idea to go for in the first place, assuming that is that Guild Wars 3 explicitly means an MMORPG, which the name does kind of suggest, right? And assuming this article is 100% accurate, and indeed that is what they're making, and even if we assume that it's like 6-7 years away, there is this question of, is that a mistake? Is it a good idea to replace one MMO with another, to self-cannibalize? Given ArenaNet's current track record of essentially abandoning Guild Wars 1, keeping it live but not really doing much with it, where they've proven they couldn't handle Guild Wars 1 and 2, given their current track record, I think, yeah, that probably would be a mistake, and I don't really want to see them making another MMO. I would fear for the quality of Guild Wars 2 releases as soon as it came out. What I think is much safer is doing Guild Wars-based stuff that expand the IP, but not into other MMOs, so that the main game can continue to thrive. Which may be what this game that they're referring to as Guild Wars 3 is in the end. But on the other hand, there's something to be said for a fresh start and, you know, a new engine with modern graphics and lighting and a fresh start with progression that isn't contaminated by all the weird decisions that have come over the years. And I think ArenaNet do have a good track record of just releasing good RPGs. Guild Wars 2, especially like at launch with all of its polish and stuff with the leveling experience, is just straight up a good RPG, and I'd love to see their take, even years later with a lot of different talent there, on doing that again. I also think there's a lot of unrealized potential and ambition that they were oozing and working on with the dynamic event system that a fresh game could give them another crack at. So it is a bit of a mixed bag. I'm once again dismayed by the online conversation from people who are upset at the idea of a Guild Wars 3 simply on the grounds that they don't want to move on from their account with a bunch of rewards and stuff on it. You know, to me, that feels like such a dead end. At the end of the day, we want good games, we want to progress, we want to enjoy ourselves, and if that means you have to move on from Guild Wars 2 eventually, because it's on its last legs, let's say, because it's not earning any money, because all the mechanics and ideas have been explored within the engine as possible, then fine, we should be able to do that. We shouldn't just drive off the cliff because, what? You bought some Black Lion keys and unlocked something cool with a wardrobe unlocker in 2017? I remember a lot of this even during the Guild Wars 1 transition to Guild Wars 2, of people thinking, well, I earned all this stuff and now I'm going to lose it, am I? You wouldn't technically lose anything, but it feels worthless to earn and have things in a game that's not going anywhere. And people felt that about Guild Wars 1 when it had far fewer years of active service than Guild Wars 2 has had. And we live in a world now where sequels to games are not automatic successes. What was it? Is it Payday 3 that came out recently and there's way more people still currently playing Payday 2? Even within the MMO genre, we have examples of that. So even just from its pure concept, a Guild Wars 3 seems like a risky, weird mixed bag. Now, the idea of a Tyrian IP project that continues the story and setting and world of Guild Wars, but is not the same genre. You know, it can be a single-player RPG, it can be a more refined ARPG, it can go back to Guild Wars 1's genre, it can do an RTS, something that expands the canon as a satellite feature that supports the flagship MMO. That I can see as the kind of project that no one would have any misgivings or worries about, and, you know, it just so happens that in this report they've called it Guild Wars 3 for whatever reason, once it's finally got to us here in the West. On this topic of, oh, if a Guild Wars 3 comes out, that means Guild Wars 2 is instantly doomed. You know, that doesn't have to be the case. I do want to be clear, there is another world we live in where they release a Guild Wars 3, and it's an MMO, and it self-cannibalizes, but it's okay, because even though it's an MMO, the genre is pretty different again, just like how GW1 was so different to GW2, and, you know, they support both games at once. The idea of them supporting both at once should be possible. Remember, the official company line right now, despite what this investor report says, is they have no plans to move on from Guild Wars 2. That's what they've officially said. They want to support it for as long as possible. They're putting all these engine new updates in, just like the post-processing update that we just happened, and mini X-Packs for as long as they can. That's their current line, and it could technically all be true, even if there's going to be a Guild Wars 3. But the thing is with all of that, in this community, having followed this franchise and this game through all the rocky periods and so on, I think of us don't have faith that will happen. And I think one of the reasons that most of us don't have faith that will happen is because of Guild Wars 1, funnily enough. Which is such a weird coincidence because just this morning I made a video about continued support for Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1 basically got abandoned as soon as Guild Wars 2 came out. So what does that tell us about what will happen with Guild Wars 2 and a Guild Wars 3? And because of that track record, I think people read Guild Wars 3 and then they immediately think, oh shit, that means it's pointless to play Guild Wars 2. They're no longer interested in this year's mini X-Pack. They'll no longer be interested in the one after that. And, you know, it just all falls apart. Which, again, is why I kind of think ArenaNet might just let this blow over and ignore it with a proper announcement when they really want to do one. But without a little more something, I don't know, guys. I'm not sure there's too much I have to say. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations over the years of the merit of a Guild Wars 3, and if it really is actually properly confirmed, and it looks that way, if more articles come under my nose, and I encourage you, leave comments, message me on my Discord, we can figure this out. If it does look very serious, you know, I'll put some videos out and we'll definitely discuss this, and it would represent a very, very, very big moment, oh Christ. But for now, yeah, just a little news piece. I wanted to put this video out because my next video is going to be a Guild Wars 1 thing, and it looks really random and weird if I don't talk about this first. I know the comments are just going to be full about the Guild Wars 3 news, if you can call that this. So there you have it, guys. Just keeping you in the loop, as I will continue to endeavour to. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one very soon, as it turns out. Cheers. Actually, guys, I'll tell you what, I've changed my mind. This is amazing, because it'll be a Guild Wars game featuring the actual Guild Wars for once. Definite smash hit success based on that alone.